Like, I know as a yoga person, I've had to work really hard to make my brand be not about sex selling at all.
You know, them naked behind a thinly veiled curtain with some sunlight, and you're like, God damn it. Because, like, I'm a man, you know, so that's like tweaking a thing.
This is an interesting question. Do you think Instagram is the new porn?
I mean, it definitely is, insofar as it's the jump off to, what's the side site called? OnlyFans, exactly. Without a doubt. Because I think it's become like a browsing thing to see what people are going to pay for on OnlyFans. And I'm really frustrated by that transition to Instagram. And I've managed to remove myself from it, largely. The trickiness of navigating particularly fitness-based content, which I'm interested in, men and women, and because women do some really good kettlebell flow things that I really like, you know, lots of like dynamic stuff that's like, but and also that I followed lots of people from you that like are in that sort of world of like engaged in body practice sort of stuff. And then just one day they'll be just like bikini model stuff, or even more than that, or like, you know, them naked behind a thinly veiled curtain with some sunlight, and you're like, God damn it. Because like I'm a man, you know, so that's like tweaking a thing. So it's really, really challenging. And because like I gave up like official porn like now years ago, like 7 years ago, which I'm really, really proud of, and it was such a big step. It was a big, brave, bold move. And then, you know, very quickly the yoga content that came into Instagram, you know, sought to replace that in my life, and I was like, no, I had to really consciously like push back from that. And even having just gone to the Olympics has been mad, because I followed a load of athletes, and all those athletes and other people who are pretending to be those athletes, or people who are unfortunately track athletes in the States or whatever, their OnlyFans is obviously blowing up as a result of their... In fact, your woman who did the pole vault, the Canadian, she did the pole vault thing, got bronze or silver, I think, and then twerked at the camera, and her OnlyFans exploded. And she's public about it, you know, so you're like, oh, man, and she's proud of it. It's a really, really hard thing to navigate, because you're like, and that's a different type of pornography to what we're used to, right? It's not that kind of... It's self-directed, which is like empowered, you know, and I have a respect for it in a certain way. But also it's like selling the most baseless, superficial version of yourself. And if you could see the people who are watching your content as they consume your content on OnlyFans, I bet you loads of those women will go, oh, this is disgusting, I'm not doing this. Yeah. But because they're, you know, they don't have to interact with that. They just sell the stuff, and then, you know, people pick it up and the money just drops in their account.
And it's such a fine line, isn't it? Because from the content producer's perspective, it's like, I know as a yoga person, I've had to work really hard to make my brand be not about sex selling at all.
Yeah.
And I'm always told, like, you are underselling your brand massively. If you just wore XYZ thing, you would have XYZ more followers. But even having opted out of all of that stuff, I'm still every day getting... You can get these yoga leggings for free, you can get this jewelry for free, you can get these tops for free, you can get this beauty product for free. Like, it's a constant barrage. And if I was if I cared less about like the sourcing and the provenance and the organicness and the that stuff, I would be going, cool, I'll get free leggings and sell them because they're good and I wear leggings, so that makes sense. And then it's such a small slope to going like, oh look, here's this thong-based body that I'm going to practice my yoga with, and I look really good in it, and I live in a hot country, so look, I can ostensibly do this. And then actually, look, so many people more followed my page, and I'm getting paid to do it. Then what's the difference in me going, I'll do my yoga in my bikini and people will pay me to do it, because ultimately I'm getting paid to do my job. So I understand, but then stepping back and going, being like a girlfriend of someone who uses Instagram. If you're single, maybe you haven't even had these thoughts yet, but if you're a girlfriend of someone who uses Instagram, you're like, hang on, like, now there's this whole platform where my partner can just for free all the time, without quote unquote using porn, just connect, like, watch other women do things that are sexual, that are sexually turning on, and not just that, but interact with them. And where's that line? Like, I know that you wouldn't go and like start like exchanging numbers with some woman in your shop and having like flirty 12 o'clock at night conversations. However, it feels like nothing to go, oh, here's that Instagram, you know, weightlifter person who I follow who's really good, and now recently she's been doing thongs and that's kind of sexy, and now I can go like, hey, liked your content today, and she goes, cool, and then suddenly you're chatting at 11 at night, and it's ostensibly like a nothing thing because you're just chatting at 11 o'clock at night with someone on Instagram. But would you, if you wouldn't do it in real life, is it appropriate to do it on Instagram? I think that's not being talked about enough. I think it erodes trust in relationships massively, and I think it erodes, like, it's such small things can erode your connection with your partner.
I think, yeah, our digital lives in general, we all know this theme of like a keyboard warrior or whatever it is, where people have like anonymity in their online behavior. And I think, yeah, nowhere more is that concentrated or evident than in, yeah, the kind of like the quasi porn, whatever, like what you're following and what you're watching and what you're consuming in Instagram. I think it's unfortunate because it's a really potentially great space. You have to really architect that great space for yourself, and you have to defend it like like tooth and nail, both for yourself as a content creator like you, and also for as a consumer of content as well. Yeah, it's interesting, that whole idea of like thirst trapping and all this sort of stuff. It's like, I hate it because it also makes you operate in a way that's self-conscious, which is not me. But I've been brought up by both you and others, you know, with somebody mentioning that something was thirst trapping or whatever, and I'm like, oh, I mean, I genuinely haven't meant it. And then there's been moments where, like, for instance, recently I did like a reel in the sauna that was about sweat and what sweat does and da 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 da. And I was like, I knew what it was when I was creating it, now, and it did nothing online. So it's interesting. So it doesn't always equate. Like what you're, even if you're kind of undermining your own thing, it doesn't always equate to the result that you expect as well. I think that's really the evidence for me that, like, you know, authenticity within our brands anyway is what people expect from us, and to kind of adhere to that is an important part of, like, you know, driving the world in the direction you want via the business that you have to do that with.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely a topic that needs to be aired more, and people who are in relationship need to, and even whether they're not, they're in relationship with themselves, they need to have conversations around, like, what's really my integrity here, like what's my intention behind this thing. Is this behavior that I do in front of my partner? And that's the really good question. Like, if your partner was watching you when in your interactions and reading all your messages, would you feel totally cozy with that? And if you would, then that's great. But if it's the case that you might be a bit like,
squirm,
oh God, it's a bit embarrassing, then you have to go, oh, hang on, well, where did that actually come? Because it's so easy. It's like, it's a validation platform, right? So it's really easy to fall into validation, both as a consumer and as a producer of stuff.
What's interesting now, though, is that we're seeing, like, a lot of those potential, like I said, I'd say some of those athletes or whatever that would have had OnlyFans accounts, they, like, you see them with their boyfriends in one photo, and then they're doing their thing in the next photo. You're like, what? That's interesting, because how does that relationship get managed? And how, I don't, it's a very tricky thing to tread. And I don't think ultimately that it's healthy. It doesn't feel healthy. Like, I think it's good for people to challenge their notions of, you know, possessiveness and jealousy and all those sorts of things. But I think the environment that you do that in probably shouldn't necessarily be with 1 million followers online. Yeah,
and it's murky, isn't it? Because it's, most people who are doing an OnlyFans would never do a pornography site.
Oh no, they wouldn't. That's interesting. I'd love to know. I'd love to ask them. I'd never done. That'd be interesting.
Most people would be like, "What? How dare you suggest that I would do something like that?" And so it's become such. What I meant earlier was it's become such an easy slide into that OnlyFans world, where essentially it's a behind the scenes, like a bit like what we're doing now. But then they get paid for it, and then that becomes you dictate your content, like, you guys like this one and I get paid more for this one. So if I don't know, show my naked feet on it, people are like, oh cool, so then you're like, cool, I'll just do more of those ones, and without even realizing, suddenly you're being paid to show a body part which is actually pornography, you know, and so or prostitution. But
you're achieving financial freedom in this like modern way of like, woohoo, go you, you know. Yeah, tricky,
it's
tricky,
line.
Isn't